be aware, and I'm telling you this now, Whānau, because you can watch this from now on with all politicians. Be aware at the tactic that Seymour uses, and he does this a lot, to reframe the question. He says to the interviewer, no, what you should be asking is. And to his credit, this one time, Guyon Espiner pulls him up on it, but because he pulls it up on it, I wanted to show it to you, but also the idea around, can this country afford tax cuts? And the idea that he basically, firstly, he does admit that we're borrowing, and then he basically admits that we're borrowing for tax cuts. Let's have a listen.
Can we afford tax cuts?
Well, I think the real question is...
No, that is the question.
Well done, sir.
I asked the questions.
Well
done.
done.
Is, can we afford tax cuts?
Well, my question is, who's we?
New Zealand.
New Zealand.
Can New Zealand afford tax cuts?
Well, the answer is obviously yes, but here's a better question.
No. Let's answer that question, because...
Well, I have. Now let me... I said yes. Now, let me give you a better question. Can the Crown, can the government deliver...
As someone who interviews people, it's so arrogant. Who the fuck are you to tell me what a better question in my interview is? It's just smarmy. It's revolting. Ugh.
The services that people expect and require while also taking less money in tax? The answer to that is unequivocally yes.
Yes, but
the
problem is that you're going to have to borrow about 15 billion, which is about the same amount as the tax cuts. You are foregoing in revenue on that tax cut. So you're effectively borrowing for tax cuts, aren't you?
Well, no. I mean, you could argue that it's not like $1 that's borrowed by the Debt Management Office gets tagged and then goes to a particular purpose.
No, but without the tax cuts, you wouldn't need to borrow 15 billion. True or false?
Sure, but without...
There it was. It was quick. It was quick. He said, yeah, sure. That's the quick bit. Have a listen again. It was quick.
About 15 billion, which is about the same amount as the tax cuts. You are foregoing in revenue on that tax cut. So you're effectively borrowing for tax cuts, aren't you?
Well, no. I mean, you could argue that it's not like $1 that's borrowed by the Debt Management Office gets tagged and then goes to a particular purpose.
No, but without the tax cuts, you wouldn't need to borrow 15 billion. True or false?
Sure, but without...
So is that true?
No,
He's pulled back
it's
right
just
now.
as valid
He pulls
to
out of
say
it.
that if we didn't have education, which is about 20 billion, or if we didn't have this
No,
or
hang
that.
on. Are you putting tax cuts on a par with the whole education budget?
Well, it's roughly a similar amount.
Yeah, but is it of similar importance?
Well, no, but...
No, so how's your analogy standing up?
Well, very simply, you could say that there are any number of activities that the government has, but we're putting together a budget
that cost $15 billion, that if we weren't giving tax cuts, we wouldn't have to borrow to fund them. I see you laughing there, Clint. I know you want to jump in here. I'll just do this because you want to respond now. So I'll just take that off the screen so you don't echo. What are your thoughts so far? Yeah. We'll go back to it, but you can jump in now.
Just when you compared the cost of the tax cuts to the cost of the education system, I've been a press sec for MPs, and sitting there and hearing them say something like that is so off message. It's just painful. Like he's saying, no, you could have an education system or you could have our tax cuts, and it's like, please, just weighing those two things against each other is just really bad. Finish off and I'll give you my take on the broader part of it.
All right, here's back to the conversation now.
Budget overall that is going to return money that people would have paid in tax and allow them to keep it to deal with the significant challenges that everyone up and down this country is facing. I think we need a reality check here. There's so many people who are so focused on 3,500 job losses in the public sector. They ought to get out on the main streets of New Zealand. I was on
for anecdotal stories,
talking to the business owners, the people that run social provision, do family budgeting. The real estate agents tell me that people are selling their houses due to family breakup.
And how much money will those people get in their pay checks with your tax cuts?
Well, obviously,
roughly,
that it depends on how much they earn, but you're looking at $10 to $20 a week for the average earner.
And you're going to spend $15 billion on that?
Well, that's because there's 5.3 million people. I mean, you can.
So you're confident you've got your priorities right?
Well, we actually do, because our priority is allowing people who have battled pretty hard and had rising tax bills,
to get
along with everything else. Well, actually, to you it may not seem like a lot, but to a lot of people that means a big difference.
Let's talk a bit more about
it. Doesn't. Just to clear this up straight away, it doesn't mean a big difference, because you can't stand there and say the people that I was talking to in Waiuku, who can't afford to pay their mortgages, respectfully, $20 a week is not all of a sudden, oh, phew, my mortgage is safe. If you are only short by $20 a week, your bank is going to work with you to make it work. So this is the thing. They're saying one thing, like people can take their kids to the movies. Like Nicola Willis can all of a sudden take her kids to the movies with $20. You can't even do that. So it's not a big amount of money to anyone really. Even the entry level, even the beneficiary on $300 a week. I mean, $20 is lovely, but it's not life changing. So if it's not life changing, to me at least, it doesn't feel big. Clint, using that word, it's a big change.
Sorry, I'm getting the echo back.
Sorry, all sorted.
There we go. So, but the beneficiaries are getting $20 a week. They're getting $2 a week. So this is the other thing. They love to talk about the average earner when they're talking about someone on about $75,000 a year. But the average taxpayer, the median taxpayer, is on less than 40K, because there's a lot of people benefits. There's part-time workers, there's students, there's retirees. All these people pay tax, and they're getting $2 a week. So your full-time minimum wage worker, they're looking at the equivalent of like a 5 cent an hour pay rise. The person on $75,000 a year, well, they're getting a 50 cent an hour pay rise. For neither of these people has had a lot of money.
Yeah. I remember. You go.
Oh, sorry. So the whole thing there where he's saying, you could say we're borrowing for tax cuts, but you could say we're borrowing to fund the education system. You could say we're borrowing, money's fungible, right? So essentially imagine that there's a pot of $15 billion and it can either be less debt, public services, or tax cuts. And the key thing is that National and this government, including Seymour, have decided that tax cuts, including $3 billion of that just to landlords, is more important than anything else. So it's more important than having less debt. It's more important than funding disability benefits properly. It's more important than these frontline services that we're seeing cut now. And sure, you could cut that up a lot of different ways, and there wouldn't be you couldn't have $15 billion of less debt and $15 billion of services remaining. But the point is that in your order of priorities, they've said tax cuts for landlords is very top. Tax cuts for everyone, a little bit of money for everyone else in tax cuts, and then way beneath that is lower debt and public services that people actually use.
If the tax cuts are worth $15 billion, I've just realized, because I'm a bit slow, if the government did everything they're doing now except giving the tax cuts, they could pay our national debt down by half in this term. Because if we're at about 100 billion, 15 billion, 15 billion, 15 billion, that's $45 billion.
Oh, it's a little bit complicated because it's 15 billion over 4 years is the cost of the tax package.
Okay, well, that's right. That's the difference.
Seymour was wrong. He got that wrong too when he said, because the education system is 20 billion a year, and he was equating that to 15 billion over 4 years. So fiscal accounting is confusing.
It is one of those questions. My numbers are obviously out by a factor of 3, but that the government who talks so much about the debt and stuff that the last guys built up, even though we know that the previous national government put on basically twice as much as the last Labor government did, but then they're not interested in doing anything about reducing the debt. The debt's the big problem, and the previous government did all these things and made a problem, but they have no plans or no reasons or nothing in place to pay that debt down. They're just going to go, oh well, now we'll move on and give $3 billion back to landlords. I know it's not, I'm not being naive when I say it's bizarre. I know the shell game, but it's so illogical it becomes a bit bizarre.
Yeah, it's a classic right wing tactic. Debt is absolute poison when the left is in office, and it's fine when the right is in office because we've got to fund those tax cuts somehow. And the whole idea is to shrink the state, shrink public services, and make the state more indebted so that it can't afford to fund public services.
Yep.
And take as much out for tax cuts as possible.